Welcome to Healthy University, where we'll discuss issues and subjects on how you can live a healthier and more productive life. And now, here's your host for Healthy University, Alan Eisenberg.
Hi, this is Alan Eisenberg, and welcome to another episode of Healthy You. I am so excited today to have my guest, who not only is going to talk about her early years of bullying, but how she turned that into the fashion mecca that she has today. And you'll learn much more about that because she's done some really fabulous work. So my guest is Evey, and she's a fashion designer who makes people stand out with her one-of-a-kind rainbow and light-up dresses. Her wearable creations have sparkled like fireworks at the MTV Awards, Coachella Music Festival, and Burning Man, and have graced the pages of Rock and Roll Bride, Huffington Post Weddings, and Offbeat Bride Magazine. So welcome to the show, Evey.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So tell me how. Let's just go right off the bat. Even though the show is called Healthy You, we do talk about bullying quite a bit. So tell me how bullying fits in now with, what you see as the fashion part.
So, bullying fits into the work that I do because my biggest passion in life is to help people be confident in their own skin and in the clothes that they wear. So I was bullied a ton growing up, and it's funny because I was actually bullied for the clothes that I wear. There was, when I was 12 years old, a boy spit in my face because he didn't like my shirt. And when I was in high school, I used to get put in detention all the time because the school would say that the way I put myself together was embarrassing. And, I was criticized so much for my clothing. And instead of sulking in the corner, I just decided to ignore it and go for it. And I decided, I want to be a designer. And it was funny because when I started telling people that I wanted to become a fashion designer, a lot of people, even people in my family, would say things like, you know what, you dress so weird. Like, who would want you to make clothes for them? And it really hurt my feelings. And, it would kind of like throw me off track for a while. And I'd think about my goals and I'd say, like, should I be a lawyer? Like, should I do something else? Like, is it crazy for me to want to be a fashion designer? Is there anyone in the world that would want me to dress them? Because people, the things that people say to you really kind of sink in. And I'd look back on my history with clothing and I'd say, am I crazy to want to do this? People have spit in my face for wearing what I want to wear. People have laughed at me. I've had eyes rolled at me, then finally I just said, you know what, life is short. This is what I want to do. And I literally packed up my car in LA and I drove all the way to New York. And I did that with the goal of, I want to move to New York and try to get involved in the fashion industry and learn everything about it. So I got there and I actually landed an internship with Betsy Johnson, who's my idol. And it was amazing. I was learning to sew from her, learning everything. And what I realized, I didn't look like all the other people that worked there with her. All the other interns, that they were all really skinny. They all wore really trendy, expensive clothes. And here I was basically homeless in New York. I knew nobody there. All I had was my 2 dogs in my car.
Yeah.
And the clothes on my back. And I showed up in Converse and I looked I stuck out like a sore thumb. And I remember she said to me, Betsy Johnson was the first person that said to me, she was like, wow, I really like your outfit. I was wearing an I Love New York shirt and black overalls that I got at a thrift store for a couple bucks. And I think that was the first time I realized, you know what? There is somebody out there that appreciates the quirky way I put myself together. And who cares what everyone else thinks? Because you're not you don't need to make clothes for everybody,
Yeah.
And it's easy to find your audience, because once you realize that you're not trying to dress the whole world, anybody who wants to be a creative person, and is writing music or whatever you're doing that's creative, you're not trying to make that thing for everybody. You're trying to make it for yourself. So once I realized that I could figure out who my audience is, I just decided to have fun with it and be me and be authentic. And I got really excited about like fiber optics and playing with things that like really light people up. And so and then somehow I started making wedding dresses for brides. And I decided to put lights in them. And I would just get like such a kick out of taking people and helping them just like really come out of themselves and really just be their most authentic selves and have so much fun in the clothes that they're wearing. And I noticed, because as I've been working with people making clothes for them, I've just noticed that, you know what, my story is not unique. All these girls that want to stand out and be different, they also have been ridiculed for wanting to be different.
Yeah, I think that's really. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, you know, so I guess I just realized that I'm not the only one. And so that inspired me to write the book.
And that's really cool. I mean, you know, your story is really cool because you didn't give up on your passion when the bullies came. And you also talked about being re-victimized, like not only the bullies, but the school administration.
Oh, yeah.
So, and that's, I talk about that all the time, how much damage that can do. And it's so great. Well, go ahead. Yeah.
No, it's true. I mean, it's like everybody says, oh, kids can be so mean, you know, kids can really say mean things to each other, but the truth is so can adults.
Mm-hmm.
And even now as an adult, like it's crazy how mean people can be. Like I hear adults saying like crazy stuff to me. Even the other day I had this crazy idea that I wanted to cut my hair. My hair was like down to here. And so I watched some YouTube videos on how to cut your own hair. This wasn't the first time I've tried to cut my own hair, and I should have learned from past mistakes. But I mustered up the courage, and maybe I was bored or something the other night after my kids fell asleep, but I put 2 little rubber bands on my hair and I like cut it off, and it looked so bad. And then the next morning I had to like run to a barbershop, and I think she kind of saved it, but I mean, anyways, I've had a few people say like, what did you do to your hair? And they're people that love me, you know, they're like, yeah. But I think it's just so easy for people to criticize each other.
Well, it's really, I call it a lack of understanding sympathy versus empathy, right? You know, where people say sympathetic things like you feel bad and they go, oh, you know, let's go outside or let's do so. They try to distract you with sympathy. But empathy is really understanding how someone feels. And that's very different, right? You know, it's very different to have to get into the mindset of how someone feels about something. And when somebody says something, so, you know, you mess up your hair, it's somebody says, oh, you know, look at you, what did you do? And it hurts, you know, and it's because I think a lot of us in the creative industry, it's something I study, we're highly sensitive people. We're very much in tune with, you know, sort of how other people feel. So as you as a designer, you can probably sense, you know, if you have that, like when you're working with a client, what they're looking for, or what they're would accept versus not accept, right?
It's true. And I mean, I notice that I laugh now when I talk about the ridicule or the judgments or, you know, the bullying that I'm getting now for being me. Mm-hmm. But I feel like it took a lot to get to this point. You know, like I feel like now I just kind of expect it. I expect people to look at me and be like, what is she doing? And, you know, I've kind of flipped the way that I see it. And now I look at it as if it's comedic. But definitely in the past, like I cried a lot when I got the dirty looks, you know.
Well, the good news about getting older, right, you know, is that we eventually develop a term my mom taught me, which was interesting, and it took me a long time to get it, which was diligus, right? Mm-hmm. And diligus is really simple. So as we get older, we people say things to us, and we think, you know, do I look like I give a S? You know, do I look like that's no longer something you know, but when you're young and you want to be accepted, that's where it's very difficult. I think now we realize, hey, there's something unique about me, and I like that, and that's what lets you do what you do in a career, and lets me do what I do.
Right.
It's the way it goes. So why do you think, in early stages, we're looked at to try to meet a standard, because I think uniqueness is what life is really about.
Right.
Why did you find, that you really did want to stand out? Like that was something you were not going to give up on. And I applaud you, because I'm sure it was tough. I'm sure you had a lot of crying days, but you stood by it. So why do you think it is that we do live that way?
I mean, so I studied cultural anthropology when I was at UCLA, and something that opened my eyes to was that everybody is born to whatever culture they're in, and whatever they see around them they think is normal. And when people start to stray from that sense of normal, they're either looked at funny, or people think like, oh, that person's really strange or weird, or sometimes they're even like shunned from the community, or like they're seen as an outcast. And the truth is that there's not just one right way to be. There's not just one right way to dress. There's not just one right way to celebrate. There's not one way to believe. There's so much variation out there. And sometimes it's easy to just think that, the way your family is the way that everybody is, or the way, everybody in your city is normal, but I think that it's really important to honor who you are inside, and to just allow yourself to, celebrate whoever that is. And just because somebody else likes something, like, let's say that, you're 21 and you should like to go out to bars and clubs and drink because that's what all your friends are doing and that's what everybody your age is doing, but you don't like that. Like, I think it's totally okay to say, you know what, that's just not me.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. And that wasn't me. I mean, I never was into that sort of culture, and I knew that wasn't how I was going to find the love of my life, was going to a bar and meeting somebody there. And that's not to say for others, everybody can do what they want to do. And I think that's
right.
As long as they're not hurting anybody. That's what I always say. What do I care what someone does if they're not hurting anybody?
And the other way around, like, you may love to read and somebody else may not like to read,
Right.
And like, they shouldn't have to force themselves to read a book. It's like, I feel like just figuring out who you are and what lights you up, I feel is like so important. So I feel like that's kind of what my mission in life is, to help people figure out what it is that lights them up and help them represent that through the clothes that they wear. So
I always
giving
say
them permission.
I always really say, like, the worst thing that we do is we put labels on each other. Mm-hmm. Because I'm really, if I was to after lots of analysis, I'm a extroverted introvert, highly sensitive male. And that's why I like to talk about these things I do. But that sounds like a label, but there's three things there, none of which can clarify on a given day what I'm going to be.
Right.
Because right now, like, I love doing this kind of stuff and being extroverted and doing, but then, I might want to have some quiet time because my energy has been dissipated, and people don't get that. It's like, you're not just one thing, or you don't have to be just one thing.
Right.
And I think a lot of people like, whether it's Myers-Briggs tests or this is who you are, or, my personality has changed incredibly over the years. Right. So have we all. So we have to take a quick break, but when we come back, I really want to talk to you about your free spirit culture and your book you're working on, and all the work you're doing in the fashion industry. So stay with me, Evey, okay? Okay, this is Alan Eisenberg with Healthy You. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Healthy University with Alan Eisenberg.
Hi, this is Alan Eisenberg from Healthy You. If you're ever looking for a place to host your podcast, try Podcast Garden. Podcast Garden hosts Healthy You and is really reasonable and a great place for your podcast to be hosted. So remember, host your podcast at podcastgarden.com. Hi, this is Alan Eisenberg. Welcome back to Healthy You. I'm here with Evey, a fashion designer who has developed her own style of fashion and has done some really great things. And a couple of those things we want to talk about, because one is a group or an organization she's working on called Free Spirit Culture, and the other is her book, That You Were Born to Stand Out. So Evey, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So tell me about this free spirit culture idea.
So I started Free Spirit Culture actually when I had my son. So I have a 3-year-old and I have a 10-month-old. And they're so cute and I love being a mom. But definitely I went through a pretty rough patch when my son was 2 months old. And it was the height of flu season, and I was so scared about getting him sick because he actually had gotten a pretty bad cold, and it got to the point where I was spending so much time with the kids inside. Like, I think there was a solid maybe 3 weeks where we just didn't leave the house because everyone around us was extremely sick and he was so little and I just couldn't risk it. And I started to get really bummed, and I started to kind of reminisce about that part of myself that was once such a free spirit, and how I jumped in the car on a whim and drove across the country with just 2 dogs and I had no plan, and drove all the way to New York just because I wanted to. Or I used to be the person that I used to be a seamstress for bands, and I'd travel around and go to Coachella or all those big music festivals.
Yeah.
And I would just be sewing clothes for these performers out of a tent. And it was life was a big adventure, and here I am with these beautiful little treasures, but just enclosed in a house and trying so hard to keep them safe against the flu. And I just started to get sad, and I started to wonder if that free spirit part of myself was kind of lost forever. So I kind of had this epiphany that, maybe while I'm snowed in here during flu season, and, while I'm so, bombarded with, I'm nursing my baby all the time and I've got my toddler playing with magnet tiles by my feet, I was like, maybe I can connect with other free spirits and start a blog. So that's why I started Free Spirit Culture. And it turned out to be just really eye-opening, because I realized also how I had mentioned about the bullying thing, that I wasn't the only one there. I also started connecting with all these free-spirited people that I'd either met on trains or, when I did roller derby, I was kind of just reaching out to the coolest, most free-spirited people I know, from drag queens to, just wanderlusters, and just kind of picking their brains. And I realized, I don't know if you heard of the book, The Happiness Project, but that's just a major influence in my life. And I realized that, the woman who wrote that book, Gretchen Rubin, she figures out ways that she can be happier where she is, without having to get on a plane and leave the country. And, I wasn't about to get up and drive away from my kids.
Right.
So I just wanted to figure out, is there ways that I can feel more free and more alive here in my life now? So I started to interview all these people, and just really had a lot of eye-opening moments, talking to drag queens, talking to artists, talking to spiritual leaders, and just really learning that, we all have this shared desire to get up and chase our dreams and live in the moment and be more mindful and just have fun. And that it's just cool to celebrate all these people. And what I noticed through Free Spirit Culture was that all those people that I've been drawn to, whether it's a drag queen, whether it's an artist, whether it's a spiritual leader, like, somebody covered in dreadlocks, or, somebody who just, the Hare Krishnas, all these people don't blend into society, and they're wearing whatever they want to wear. And so I started to ask them, I started to say, like, so you stand out, the rest of the world doesn't dress like that, and it must take a lot of courage to, like, be a man and put on a wig and go perform, like, that must take courage. So I started asking them, like, have you been bullied? And can you tell me, like, what gives you the courage to just, like, ignore what everybody says and just wear whatever you want and be you? And so it's kind of turned into that.
Yeah.
And it's cool.
It is, isn't it? When I started my blog, 11 years ago, I thought I was doing it just for me. I thought I was doing sort of this cathartic, like, oh, I need to just express myself, and sort of the same as you. I have this creative bent, and I had my little kids back then. They're big now, but I felt sort of trapped, and I wasn't expressing. And so I just wanted to express, and then all of a sudden it exploded. People start sending you stuff, telling you you're inspiring them. It's like, whoa, how rewarding it is. I call it sort of selfless selfishness, right? You're expressing yourself, and you're using your blog to help others, or help yourself even, and here you get all of this satisfaction out of all of these people coming and telling you you're doing this, and you're helping them express themselves.
It's true.
Yeah, I've had some extreme breakout moments where, people, like, I talk about being highly sensitive as a guy. You talk about, taking a chance, saying, hey, I'm really emotional. I cry all the time. I do all this stuff that's not very guy-like. And then all these guys are like, thank God you said it. I've been waiting for somebody to, my wife doesn't believe me when I say I'm like this, because this label of being a male says we're not supposed to be like this.
It's true.
Yeah. So that's great. That's awesome.
Because I think people are looking for two things, they're looking for permission to be themselves, mm-hmm. and to feel normal. And then I also feel like, people are looking for that community. And it's amazing that you feel like that, to realize that just through starting a blog or having a podcast, you really can bring people together like that.
Yeah. Cool. I think no one is probably more shocked than me, and probably no one's more shocked than you with free spirit culture, that, all of these people get attracted to what you're doing. It's like, you're just doing, and I call it, it's my passion. This is my passion. And it's actually inspired me to further my passion, right? I continue to evolve it, where I'm now studying to become a licensed professional counselor and really work with people. So it's like, whoa, how did I get from there to here? And it's a total life change. Like, for me at 50, saying I'm going to change my life because of these things I've done that were probably always there. And then you used a word before, authentic. I talk about our authentic selves, who we really are, and how society sometimes tries to make us mask that to fit in. And then we decide, then we decide on that diligus thing I was saying, so that's great. I applaud you for that. And I think you're definitely meeting a culture need, people in, I think we're in a very lucky time, and particularly with the LGBTQIA community, where now, this, what wasn't acceptable is becoming acceptable.
Right.
You'll find it out with your kids too, when they start telling you they're pansexual and stuff. Like, I had to go look that one up, but yeah, it's like, we're not going to identify. I'm like, okay, so that's the new thing, which is cool. So tell me about the book. Tell me about the book, You Were Born to Stand Out.
So I decided to write that book. It actually, I'm reading my kids Dr. Seuss stories every night before they go to bed. And literally one night, this book just popped in my head. Mm-hmm. And it's basically to the tune of a Dr. Seuss book. And it's like short, it's like it's a story you'd read to a 3-year-old. And it's just all about, it's called You Were Born to Stand Out. And it's all about, that there's not just one right way to dress, and that some people dress this way, some people dress that way, and that there's no right, there's no wrong, nobody's better or worse. And so there's a big freedom of expression point there, and also about kindness and acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because I initially wrote it for a little kid, and then I realized, you know what, it's not just for little kids, because grown-ups also need to hear this too, whether they have a kid that is different or wants to dress differently, or they want to dress differently, or they might be not so nice to somebody else that they know that's dressing differently. So, you know, I wrote it not only for my children to show them that it's okay to be whoever they want. You know, my daughter loves to wear her rainbow tutu to school, and some of the teachers have said, like, is she dressing up like a clown? It's like, no, she's just 3. You know, she's 3 years old and she's dressing like herself, you know.
She's expressing herself. She's, you know, especially at that age, they get into like this one thing they want to wear all the time. And you know, why would you stop them?
Let kids be kids. Like, she doesn't have to wear jeans just because they sell them in that size, you know. It's like, she's 3 years old. Let her wear a fun little outfit, you know. So, you know, I'm writing it for her so that she can have the courage and the confidence to be herself. But I'm also writing it for her teachers, and I'm writing it because the teachers should read it. And I want, you know, so I feel like it's a book that is for all ages, and it's a bedtime story that could give anybody a confidence boost and a reminder to be kind.
Right.
And it's all about, you know, the variation that's out there, and why we wear the clothes we wear, and that we can have fun with our clothes.
Yeah, and that we can be who we are. You know, I think that's hopefully the future, is that, you know, the acceptance level in the community, in the social community, as you studied, you know, becomes one of allowing individualism and freedom of expression without, you know, without, you know, violating the norm of going to school, like you need to study, but are you violating, you know, some dress code or something,
right.
Or some culture code. And it's important also to recognize, you know, we're more of a melting pot today. And it's like you said, different cultures wear different clothes, and some of it's beautiful, you know, some of it is, a lot of it is, you know.
And speaking about that, I mean, it's crazy if you look at the statistics. I mean, they say that like 1 out of every 7 kids is either getting bullied or they are a bully.
Oh,
and then, like, if you look at the trans community specifically, I mean, like 75% of them are getting bullied for the clothes that they're wearing.
Sure.
And also, when you look at like religious communities or different cultures, different tribes, different ethnic groups, they are also getting bullied at disproportionate rates. And it's because of the different clothes that they're wearing. You know, they're not just wearing jeans and a t-shirt, so they look different, and people can't handle it. Like,
well, it's a great amount of ignorance. You know, if we found nothing out more recently than we wanted to, we still live in a lot of ignorance, and sadly, you know, people don't understand so much, and it takes an effort to understand. It takes an effort to learn about a different culture, a different way somebody is or shows up. And I'm not going to make an assumption from your last name. I'm Jewish. You might be Jewish based on your last name, but you know, there's culture there. There's differences, and I always tell people, I say, you know, it's kind of interesting to be Jewish in today's world, because, you know, we don't have to admit it. You know, no one's really going to walk up to me and say, hey, you're Jewish, you know. But you know, it took me a bit to get to the point of saying, yes, this is what I am. Well, why aren't you wearing that thing on your head? And why, you know, you keep kosher, so you can't eat this. No, I don't keep kosher. I don't wear anything on my head all the time. You know, I love my bacon. Sorry, but you know, that's not the way it works. You know, some things I'm culturally on with with being in that religion, but some are not. And then my philosophy tends toward, you know, Buddhism. I have a very Buddhist philosophy. So people don't understand those differences in us. So I really appreciate that you're doing that you're out there really both in the fashion world, in your blogosphere, and in your book. You're like me. You're doing all of this stuff, and people always ask me, when do you sleep? I say, I don't know. When I die, I guess I'll sleep. But
Right.
I applaud you for all that work, because it's such important work to make people feel welcome in our society, and know there's places where people don't judge them.
True. And it's funny, I wanted to say, it's so funny that you mentioned the Jewish thing and that people ask you where your kippah is. I'm actually taking the story and I'm making a Jewish version of it to give to the Jewish community, because I feel like even within our own community, like there's so much variation, and I feel like people assume that the way that they're doing things are right, and everything a little bit more is extreme and everything a little bit less is like not at all. And there's so many different ways that people dress, even just as a religious Jew, or there's so many different kippah styles, so I feel like there's not enough acceptance even within one tribe,
Oh, no, I mean, no, we're, I tell people all the time, I'm like, the Orthodox don't accept me. There's a whole sect of Judaism that doesn't really see me as a real Jew because of the way I do things, or I'm in a mixed marriage or whatever. But it's like that in all religions. It's just they don't think about it. Religions. Yeah. Yeah.
There's just so much variation among people. Like there's just not one right way to be. Fill in the blank. There's just not one right way to be.
And you're right. Even within, to say, yeah, I'm Jewish doesn't mean that, there aren't people who are Jewish that don't understand the way I live. Yeah.
Right.
So we're all a variety of ourselves.
Even if you said you're an Orthodox Jew, that I still couldn't guess how you might dress. You could wear a white knitted, you could wear a black fur hat, you could wear a hat that's not fur, you might wear like white stockings.
Yeah.
There's still so much variation.
And then there's the Hasidim. If you're in New York, I do a lot of purchasing with a group out of New York, which is B&P Video, and it's all Hasidic Jews, and they're closed all the time. You're like, it's like every holiday they're closed, and it's like I have to tell people that I work with, I'm like, they're going to be closed basically through September. Don't try to get anything.
Order in advance.
Yeah. Order in advance. So I have a question I like to ask all my guests, and hopefully you have a really good answer. I imagine you do. So can you tell me something that you're doing today that you didn't do in the past to live a happier and healthier life?
So it's actually interesting that you asked me that. I went to my doctor 3 months ago, and he said to me, he's like, so how are you feeling? And I said, not good. And he said, what do you mean? And I said, I'm tired all the time. Like I am tired all the time. And he said, well, how much are you sleeping? And I mean, you can guess, I don't sleep that much, because between like my creative passions and my 10-month-old who nurses 3 times in the night, and my daughter who comes into my bed every night at 3 a.m.
I promise it'll end. I promise it will.
Like, I just don't know if I really ever sleep. But aside from that, he says to me, he's like, so how much you working out? And my answer was never. Like I considered working out, getting up to get the baby in the middle of the night and then putting him back in bed and cleaning up the toys. And he said, yeah, that doesn't count.
Yeah.
So my new thing that I actually started a week or 2 ago is I got a treadmill, and every morning I am waking myself up, getting out of bed, and I am walking on the treadmill for at least 20 minutes. If I don't feel well, if I don't have a lot of time, 20 minutes. And if I feel good and I've got more time, then I'm going to stay on that treadmill at like a slow pace and just keep walking. I'm putting a desk on it. So there was a day that I walked an hour and a half while I was writing on my blog. So that's my new thing. I'm just trying to walk every day.
Yep. And it's the perfect answer, because exercise is one of what I call like my 4 things I tell everybody. It's like, you're going to be sad. You're going to feel these ways, depression, all these things. There's things we can do to take care of ourselves. And the reason exercise works is because you're releasing the endorphins, right? That's this whole, it's like the drug for the mind without doing drugs, right? Try to teach people that kind of stuff. It's like, hey, they work. But also, you're just going to feel healthier. You're going to feel better. You're going to feel more hungry. You're going to feel more tired. That's all benefits. And there's an interesting study, if you look it up, that shows that mothers, so they went with mothers who didn't take any time for themselves, what we call self-care, right? Mm-hmm. And then mothers who took an hour every day. And the mothers who took an hour every day, when they talked to the children saw them as better parents. Right?
I believe it.
So it's never going to be quantity, it's always going to be quality, right?
Right.
If you're home all the time and you're miserable and you're not active with your kids and you're tired and makes you grumpy and all that, your kid is going to get a lot of benefit out of that. So it's interesting, but yeah, there's lots of stuff to talk about that. So thanks for that answer. That's a great one, and one that, along with things that I talk about like nutrition, gratitude journaling or gratitude reading, and I tell people to stop watching the news. Read your news, but don't watch.
I stopped that a while ago.
Yeah, 9/11. If you were in New York, I don't know, but on 9/11, that's what destroyed me. Watching those towers come down over and over and over, I just went into a funk, for a long time. I was like, I got to stop this. One time would have been enough. I didn't need to see it, and I don't need to hear about like this thing going on, 20 states away from me, and make me paranoid about my own kids' safety, right? So anyway.
I'm with you 1,000,000% on that. I don't turn that on ever. I can't.
Yeah. And it really is I hate to say, I studied broadcast media. That's what I wanted to do originally. And I was like, but that was the news with Walter Cronkite and Edward R. Murrow. And, now the 24-hour cycle just has us, they have nothing else to do.
No.
They espouse opinions and they show the same thing over and over.
Yeah.
I can't take it.
You and make you anxious.
Yeah. So when I'm on a treadmill, I read my news, and most of it's entertainment, or, you could do fashion or whatever. And I read just a little bit about, politics or something, or world that I need to know. But otherwise, I have more fun reading about what's going on in the Star Wars universe or something like that. That's what I want to read. So
I feel like that, for me, that's what Facebook is for. It's like anything really big going on, I'm going to hear about it on my news feed. That's enough for me. I'll look into it if I need to, but like I don't want to just like listen to the news all day. Ugh.
But even with Facebook, like, you have your negative ninnies on Facebook who are always negative, and I actually started blocking them because I just don't need that. I don't need to be constantly, bombarded by their negativity. I like reading positive affirmations or people who are, talking about good things. I'm not really, it's not that you can't talk about something bad, but if you're constantly on it,
you're sensitive. I get it.
Yeah. I mean, I want to be empathetic, but at the same time, I can't take it. I can't take all the negativity. So anyway, thank you so much for being on the show. I really want to give people an opportunity to learn more about you, see your blog, see what you're up to with the book. How can people reach out and get in touch with you?
So people can reach out through my blog. It's freespiritculture.com. I also have my website if anybody wants to see my crazy light up dresses. It's my name, Evey, clothing.com. And I think you can actually also get there if you go to Rainbow Light Bride. So
yeah, I want to say Rainbow Light Bride was a site, and I'll have all those up with the podcast so people can get right to those links. But you're doing really good work, and I'm so happy to have a chance to have talked to you about your experience with bullying and how that formed you to continue with your passion, not let it derail you, because I talk to so many people it derails, and then sometimes they get back on the right path, sometimes they don't and never will. But it was great to get a chance to talk to you and to see all the work you're doing. I think that's great. Keep it up.
Thanks, Alan. Thank you for the work you're doing.
Thank you. Thanks.
You're awesome.
So this is Alan Eisenberg. I hope you'll join us next time on Healthy You.
Thank you for listening to Healthy University, brought to you by Bullying Recovery, LLC. This podcast does not replace the need for medical advice, professional diagnosis, opinion, treatment, or services to you or any other individual. The information provided here or through linkages to other sites is not a substitute for medical or professional care, and you should not use the information in place of a visit, call, consultation, or the advice of your physician or other healthcare provider. Join us next time for more Healthy University.